Morning, everyone. Today is Thursday, March 22nd, 2018. We are here this morning for the Conference Committee on Senate File 3133, which is the MNLARS appropriation bill for between now and the end of the fiscal year. Just as sort of a general guideline, it would be my intention to not take more testimony. We have had multiple hearings on this. We, at least in my mind, as between the members, I don't know that we need to absorb a good deal more information. So that would be my intention, subject to strenuous objections from the members. However, I have indicated to Commissioner Doman that if she wishes to come forward and talk to us this morning, I will agree to that. It's my understanding that Commissioner Clyburn is not available, so I would, if Commissioner Doman wants to come forward, she would come forward and speak on behalf of both agencies and the governor's office. With that, the first thing that we're going to do is go forward with a brief explanation of the side-by-side. With that very brief explanation, do any of the members wish to have, express any concerns? Representative Torkelson.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. First, I want to thank everyone for being here on very short notice. We've been trying to move this just as quickly as possible. I'd especially like to welcome the Senate members of the Conference Committee. I didn't get a chance to greet you personally this morning. You were busy chatting, so welcome aboard and members of our Conference Committee too. This has been, a difficult, strenuous issue for all of us. But we're making every effort to move ahead quickly, and I'd like to thank the Senate for its work to get us to this point. And I look forward to working through this morning and moving this quickly. And as we all know, this is not the end of the story. We have more work ahead of us, and so a cooperative approach to this would be most beneficial. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Torkelson, and I would be remiss if I didn't thank the House members for being here and their staff. Representative Baker, I know that you have been involved in this, and you and I have talked on occasion regarding this matter. Senator Nelson, it's nice to see you again. You and I have not.
Sir, I don't want to be demoted like that. It's Representative Nelson.
My apologies. Even Representative Nelson, even though I am House trained, I still like it in the Senate. I really do. But it's good to see you, and it's good that you and I are going to have a chance to once again work together. With that, any other members have anything they want to express at this point? Otherwise, we're going to go to the side-by-side. Ms. Stengel, if you would walk us through the side-by-side briefly, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. I'm going to do a very high-level overview and skip over a lot of the details. If anybody has any questions, feel free to stop me. So I'm working from the side-by-side document that you all have in your packets. On page R1 on the Senate side is the creation of the Information Technology Auditor position in the Office of the OLA. You will see in subdivision 2 the duties of that auditor include an initial assessment of the MNLARS system and then quarterly reports to the steering committee created in the next section. Section 2 on line 2.7 on the Senate side creates the MNLARS steering committee. Subdivision 1 is definitions. On R2, line 19, we get into the meetings. The chairs of the House and Senate Transportation Committees are co-chairs. The committee is subject to the open meeting law, except for members can submit a vote in writing, and this is supported by the LCC. Subdivision 3 is the membership of the committee. It's made up of, on the Senate side, the Senate Majority Leader, the Chair and Ranking Minority Member of the Senate Transportation Committee, the Speaker of the House, and then the Chair and Ranking Minority Members of the House Transportation Finance Committee. On page R3 on the Senate side, we talk about the plans and the timeline, which is also referred to as the roadmap in some cases, when we're talking about it in common parlance, and the performance measures and the reports that must be submitted. So basically, the idea here is that by May 15th, the Commissioner of Public Safety and the Commissioner of Minute must submit several proposed reports and a proposed timeline to the committee for their approval. On the House side, you'll see some similar type language. Their subdivision 3 is the project schedule and performance measures. And they set out their deadline, the House's deadline. You'll see on line 327 of the Senate side and 313 of the House side, the performance standards that are used to measure the progress on MNLARS, and those are essentially the same things. Going to page R14 on the Senate side, paragraph C, this is where R4, thank you. On the Senate side, paragraph C is the committee approval of the timelines and plans. And on the House side, the commissioner must submit the performance measure reports and those sorts of things to the appropriate people. And also the House side says that the performance measures and timeline are not subjected to the administrative rulemaking provisions. Back to the Senate side, starting on line 4.13, this is where the Commissioner of Public Safety and the Minute Commissioner must report quarterly to the commission, or excuse me, to the committee. Subdivision 5 is where the Senate has their provisions on the quarterly review of the MNLARS appropriations. The appropriation is broken into 4 pieces and allotted each quarter to DPS for MNLARS. The committee reviews the progress and can defer, slow, or condition the next allotment based on failure to perform up to the performance measures. On R5, we go back to the House side. This is the House's progress reporting, the items that must be included in their monthly progress reports. And that carries on through page R6. On R6, back to the Senate side, we're talking more about the committee voting, that the committee members can withdraw a vote by submitting their withdrawal in writing, and that if a quarterly allotment is not made, the commissioner of MMB must do an allotment for 30 days worth of technical staff. And back to the House side, there's an expiration provision for when the provisions of this act expire. To the Senate side again, the Commissioner of Management and Budget can resubmit funding if the funding is deferred. And that's for consideration by the full legislature. The bottom of R6 and continuing on to R7 on the House side is a request for information. The Commissioner of Public Safety must issue an RFI to look at using qualified vendors to replace the functionality of MNLARS. On the bottom of R7 on the House side is a Real ID extension provision. It requires the Commissioner of Public Safety to coordinate with the governor to seek any federal extensions to the implementation of Real ID. On R8, there is the effective date. For the Senate, it's effective, the funding provisions are effective for appropriations in fiscal 19. And you'll see that the Senate has it broken out. It's a transfer between the special revenue funds. There's language about what the appropriation can and cannot be spent on. And finally, on the next page, you'll see funding for the new IT auditor position. So back to the House side on R8, their appropriations start, and they have, the House has broken up the appropriation into a line item type description of the amounts of money and what they may be spent for. On R10, subdivision 2 on the House side, this is the agency appropriation target reduction where the governor must identify money from other executive agencies to pay for the appropriation made to DPS. And then the effective dates for both are effective the day following final enactment.
Thank you, Ms. Stengel. Any members have any questions or comments with respect to the side-by-side? Okay, seeing none, then I would entertain a motion for the A26 amendment.
Mr. Chair,
Senator Osment.
I'd move the A26 amendment.
A26 amendment has been moved by Senator Osmic. Discussion. Seeing no discussion at this point, Ms. Stengel, would you care to walk us through the A26, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. The A26 is sort of a melding of the House language and the Senate language. So I will walk through this briefly. Please stop me if there are questions. Section 1 on page 1 is the initial appropriation, the supplemental appropriation for fiscal year 18. You'll see in subdivision 1, 9.65 million in fiscal 18 is appropriated from the special revenue funds, and that money comes out of the vehicle services operating account and the driver services operating account. Subdivision 2 funds the IT auditor position in the OLA's office at $350,000 in $100,000 in fiscal 18 and $250,000 in 2019. And this is from the vehicle services operating account. Subdivision 3 is how the funds may or may not be used. You'll see paragraph A on line 17 to 26 are sort of a truncated version of the House's line item appropriations. And paragraph B, starting on line 27, is the Senate language that identifies things that the funds can and cannot be spent on. On page 2, line 3, subdivision 4 provides the process by which the Commissioner of Public Safety can have the line item amounts adjusted, and that's done by making a request to the MNLARS Steering Committee to have those adjusted. Section 2 is the MNLARS implementation requirement provisions. Subdivision 1 provides definitions. Subdivision 2, you'll see the project timeline, deadlines, performance measures, and plans. And this really is a merger of a lot of the House and Senate language being put together. So by May 1st, the Commissioners of Public Safety and Minute have to submit several things to the committee. First is a detailed project budget. Second is a proposed project timeline that includes deadlines and performance measures to be met each quarter. And then there are a series of several plans on communication and progress for how they will communicate things to stakeholders. Paragraph B, starting on line 3.10, are the performance measures that both the House and Senate had going into conference. Line 322 is the House language about not needing to follow the administrative rule process. Subdivision 3 on line 3.25 is the progress reporting. By May 1st, and then shortly before the start of each quarter, the Commissioner of Public Safety and Minute must submit a progress report, and each progress report must discuss the items that are listed on the first half of page 4. Each of these progress reports must include a statement that says that the Commissioner affirms the statements are complete and truthful to the best of their knowledge, and signed by each Commissioner. Subdivision 4 is stakeholder reporting. Shortly before each quarter, the deputy registrars and the automobile dealers associations are encouraged to submit a progress report, as are any other stakeholders interested in doing so. Subdivision 5, starting on 423, is the House's language on the RFI for vendors to replace the functionality in MNLARS. And the details of that carry through the middle of page 5. Starting on page 5, line 20, you'll see section 3. This is the IT auditor position that's created in the OLA's office, and that person will monitor and report to the committee that's established on MNLARS. Again, on subdivision 2, you'll see the duties of this individual. The initial duty is to do assessment of MNLARS, including looking at the roadmap, the technical assessment, and those sorts of things. And that is submitted to the committee. And on 6.5, paragraph B, you will see that the IT auditor must make quarterly reports to the committee talking about whether deadlines and performance measures have been met, and then whether they are in compliance with the plans that were submitted, and those are those communication and progress plans. Section 4 creates the MNLARS Steering Committee and provides quarterly funding review. Subdivision 1 is definitions. Subdivision 2 on line 26 is the committee membership. And this has changed a little bit since the side-by-side. So the members are the chair of the Senate Finance Committee or a senator appointed by that chair, the chair and ranking minority member of the Senate Transportation and Finance Committee, the chair of the House Ways and Means Committee or a House member appointed by that chair, and the chair and ranking minority member of the House Transportation Finance Committee. Subdivision 3 are the meeting provisions. The committee must have their first meeting by May 1st of this year. The House Transportation chairs serve as co-chairs. They must meet quarterly, again, subject to the open meeting law, except you can vote in writing, and the LCC does provide administrative support. Subdivision 4 are the committee duties. They must review the proposed timeline, deadlines, and performance measures included in that timeline, and the proposed plan submitted as earlier provided in the bill. The committee may request that the commissioners make changes to the proposed timeline and plans. And then prior to reviewing the July 1 quarterly allotment, so that would be sometime in late June, the committee must approve the timeline and plans and then transmit those plans and timelines to the IT auditor, who can then use them for his or her evaluation. The committee has 3 broad goals: to review progress reports submitted by the commissioners and stakeholders, to review reports from the IT auditor, and to review quarterly appropriations. On line 7.30 and 31, it specifies that the committee can contract, hire, or consult with any individual that will help the committee perform their duties. At the top of page 8 is the review of appropriation language. Again, the funds appropriated in fiscal 2019 are divided into 4 equal parts. And to make it clear, this quarterly allotment does not apply to the appropriations in section 1. This is only for fiscal 19. So 20 days before the start of each quarter, the commissioner of MMB submits a proposed allotment to the committee to be considered. The committee then determines whether DPS and Minute have met the deadlines and performance measures that were established. The committee can vote to defer, reduce, or further condition the next quarterly allotment or request further information. And in either of these situations, the commissioner must follow the committee vote to defer, reduce, or condition. And if it's a request for further information, there's no allotment made. In paragraph C, you will see the process by which a member can withdraw their vote. So essentially, if enough members withdraw that there's no longer a majority wanting to reduce, defer, or condition, then the appropriation is made. And paragraph D is again the language that says if the quarterly allotment will be deferred, the commissioner of MMB must do a 30-day allotment to pay for the contracted technical staff working on MNLARS. Subdivision 6 is the authority for the commissioner of MMB to resubmit a funding proposal for the 2019 legislative session. And again, the effective date there indicates that subdivision 5 does only apply to the 2019 appropriations. Page 9, section 5 is the Real ID Act extension, telling the commissioner and the governor to seek federal extensions that are available. Section 6 tells us when everything will expire. So section 2, subdivisions 2 to 4 and section 4 expire upon full implementation of MNLARS, and it is up to the steering committee to determine when that full implementation has happened. And section 7 is a severability clause, so if any of the provisions get struck down, the rest remains in effect.
Thank you, Ms. Stengel. It occurred to me during the walkthrough that there is a provision in here involving the OLA, and I know that Mr. Nobles is in the audience, and I don't think that he has publicly had an opportunity to weigh in on the responsibilities and the funding on this. So I'm going to give him a moment or two to collect his thoughts. And Mr. Nobles, just have a seat. Very nice. I'm going to call Commissioner Dolman to the testifying table if she wishes to testify on behalf of DPS and Minute. Commissioner Dolman, what are your wishes? I'm sorry? That would be fine. That would be fine. With that, Mr. Nobles. Mr. Nobles, first of all, if you could identify yourself and who you represent for the tape, and then I've got a specific question that I want to ask of you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the conference committee. My name is Jim Nobles. I'm the legislative auditor.
Thank you, Mr. Nobles. In the 826 amendment, there are a number of responsibilities that are being assigned to the Office of Legislative Auditor, and we have carved out some funding. I think it's a total of $350,000 for funding should your office need it. If you could comment on your understanding and willingness to undertake this responsibility and a comment on the funding, if you would.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the conference committee. We at the Office of Legislative Auditor have been tracking developments with MNLARS for several years, and we have done some assessments along the way. And so my feeling is about the responsibilities that you've given us, that we want to do anything and everything we can to help the state move this project along. And I think we are at a point where there needs to be strong legislative oversight. I think that will be done by the steering committee with the help of the Office of the Legislative Auditor. As to the funding, I think sitting here right now, I feel like the funding is adequate. I believe we will need to hire an outside consultant with deep technical expertise to help us make a technical assessment of the current status and as MNLARS develops. So I appreciate that funding. This is a temporary assignment, although one that is very serious and will probably take us through many months of work. So I think my approach will be to hire somebody who has specific expertise to do an assessment of MNLARS. As some of you may know, we actually have a unit within our office and have had for several decades that does IT audit work just on an ongoing basis. But the strength of that unit over time has been in cybersecurity, not in systems development. So this shifts us a bit towards systems development. And so again, my expectation will be to hire a consultant, possibly a firm that will provide us with the deeper technical expertise, although I certainly and other members of my team will continue to monitor personally the management process by which we need to fix MNLARS.
Thank you, Mr. Nobles. Any members of the conference committee have any questions that they want to ask Mr. Nobles on this issue? Representative Baker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Nobles, as I understand this request and appropriation for your office, it's more to look from this moment kind of going ahead on the deployment and the clarity of the roadmap. Are you still planning on assessing how we got to where we got at some point? That's a different mission for you? I want to be kind of clear on that, if I could.
Mr. Nobles.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Representative Baker. I appreciate that question because we do have a number of ongoing examinations of MNLARS. We have a financial audit, which is in process, which is looking at the accuracy of the financial transactions. We also have an ongoing examination of the very question that you just asked. How did we get to this point? The assignment here, again, as you point out, I think is from this day forward. But we are going to look back, both at how we got to this point, and very specifically, how we got to a point this year that the administration asked for $43 million more. We want to know how that deficit in the funding for the project occurred, and down to some specifics, exactly when that knowledge was acquired and by whom, and when that knowledge was conveyed to the legislature. So that will be a part of our examination as well, but separate from this.
Representative Baker.
And Mr. Chair, just to follow up, because this MNLARS steering committee will start to meet on or before May 1st, would your office have an opportunity to provide some of that prior information to that point, or just from a timing standpoint, I'm wondering if that would be available by that date or not?
Mr. Nobles.
Mr. Chairman, I would have to say no. That is going to be a fairly extensive examination. Will involve a good deal of interviewing as well as a review of documents, so I can't tell you that it will be done by then.
Members have any other questions for Mr. Nobles? Thank you, Mr. Nobles. I appreciate you coming forward to give us that information, and we appreciate your willingness to undertake this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Questions with respect to the 826 amendment from members?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. At this point in time, I would like to take a recess to have a chance to just take a look in a little more detail on the 826, and we'll be back whenever you decide we need to be back.
Okay. Request has been made to allow the House members to go through the 826, which is an amendment that came forward from the Senate side. I think that's a reasonable request. So at this point, we are going to take a recess to the call of the chair.